Today on the podcast, we're going to see which movie is better, Interstellar or Project Hail Mary. Secondly, did Project Hail Mary rip off Interstellar? Because they're very similar. It's a hot topic. So Peyton and I are going to get into it. Peyton also works here at Film Unleashed, just like Asa from the previous video. He helps do business and whatnot. But we both love movies, and as you know, I grew up making movies, and that's why I run a video marketing company now. But let's get into it. Peyton, how are you ready for the podcast?
I'm ready. Coming in as the Interstellar guy, I'm ready to not necessarily, prove why it's so much better, even though maybe it is, but just excited to talk about it. I actually watched it this morning while I was doing some things just to get it fresh in the brain, and I enjoyed it as always. So excited to talk.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited. So Peyton's already biased to the topic, but that's okay. For your guys' interest, I do like both movies, so I'm going to withhold my thought or my take of what is better till the end of the segment. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into just some stats here. Interstellar, obviously directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, and Jessica Chastain. As well as some other people. Guest star Matt Damon makes an appearance, and then Timothy Chalamet. I did not even know that till today, actually. So
yeah, don't forget about him.
Loaded early cast. Bill Irwin, Josh Stewart, yeah, all sorts of great people. A little budget for you. They spent $165 million making that movie, which honestly, I feel like that's really good. Yeah, it came out a while, probably over a decade ago, but even when you compare that to like Marvel movies of that time, I feel like that's a pretty decent budget. Like it's nothing crazy. The box office made $704 million worldwide. So they about, what is that, 3 to 4x their money, depending how they look at marketing. Obviously, the score is done by Hans Zimmer. Cinematographer is Hoyt van Hoytema. You can comment below the actual name. And then produced by Paramount and Warner Brothers. So yeah, definitely some great stuff. Won a couple awards. Won Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. The Black Hole. Gargantua was rendered using real physics equations that produced a published scientific paper. So that was a really cool thing. Any thoughts, any topics to add just right off the rip on the stats, Peyton?
Yeah, I think one of the important things to look at is that Interstellar was made in 2014, and then Project Hail Mary just came out this year. So there's a little bit of a time frame difference. So I would note that. But yeah, great cast, Interstellar.
Do we want to go ahead
stats.
and compare stats to Project Hail Mary while we're talking stats?
Yeah, it just depends how you wanted to format it, whether you wanted to just talk about Interstellar first or kind of just go back and forth about the two.
I kind of want to do let's do stats for both, and then let's just work through each movie.
Yeah, I like that
as a whole. Because I'm not gonna remember the stats if we don't look at them now. So the viewers won't. Okay, let's see here. Project Hail Mary, directed by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, starring Ryan Gosling as Ryland Grace, Sandra Hüller as Eva Stratt, Jamie Ortiz is the voice/performance of Rocky. It's good to note that he was rolling the ball around, like puppeting the Rocky, and because he was reading the lines and doing the voices on set in character as well as he could, they actually upgraded him to the voice actor. He was not the voice actor. He was just trying to help Ryan Reynolds. So talk about promotion of the century, going from puppeteer to, a lead character in a movie is pretty fun. Let's see here. Screenplay, Drew Goddard. Probably mispronouncing that. Budget, $200 to about $248 million. So definitely about a little over $100 million more than the first movie. I don't know how that works. This movie has come out 12 years later, so I'm not sure about inflation there. And then
Yeah.
box office, it made over $677 million worldwide. So, I mean, there alone, if you compare the two, Interstellar did make more money than Project Hail Mary in the box office,
Yeah.
which I think we should remember. Cinematographers Greg Fraser, great. The music's Daniel Pemberton. No Hans Zimmer, but still good. So, yeah, 2026. Good cast, but really just a singular person, right? Like there's like the main character and then that doctor lady. So, nowhere near as loaded as Christopher Nolan.
Yeah, I would say it was definitely really focused on Ryan Gosling pretty much throughout most of the movie, um, which of course he's a great actor. But I definitely felt like Interstellar, there was a focus on a multitude of different actors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot of more stories happening at the same time and little plots and whatnot. Whereas with Hail Mary, it's singular. They do jump and forth with the time thing for sure. Present
Yeah.
day, and then he's daydreaming, goes back in time. But yeah. Okay, so let's get this out of the way for the viewers. How do we want to judge these movies? Should we judge off of? We should judge off good story. We should judge off of overall craft. Let's go visual effects, cinematography, and score should be its own separate thing. And then
Hmm.
thirdly, we should probably have one more. What do you think, Peyton? What's going to help us determine which movie's better?
What have what have they been so far?
We're going to do just story, and then we're going to do the craft in the sense of music, cinematography, wardrobe, sets, visual effects. We'll lump that together.
Hmm.
And maybe we each give each one a number score, 1 out of 10, and then we'll combine our scores and see which one's higher.
Okay.
And then third, we need a third. How it made us feel. Let's do that. How did it
I was
make
I
us
was gonna
feel?
say like yeah, I was gonna say like the experience as a viewer. So like yeah, how did it make you feel?
Yeah. Okay. Comment below what you think our predictions are going to be. Predict what we're going to rank each one, and then compare. That'll be the thing. That'll be like the fun thing we do. Okay. So scene by scene breakdown, and Peyton interrupt me and add to it. Do you actually have a scene by scene breakdown on your
I do
end?
not, but I have, some notes about the different parts of the movie. I have notes about it. So when those come up, we'll be able to talk about it.
Perfect. I'll just read through the bullet points and you just stop me. Okay. Scene by scene breakdown for Interstellar. It opens in a documentary style. We see a hint at a dust bowl like ecological. I can't read today, guys. Peyton, how does the movie start?
So it starts with them and the family sort of living on the farm. Cooper, who is Matthew McConaughey, plays Cooper. He's say the main character. His wife is no longer with them, so they're growing up on the farm with him, his two kids, and their grandfather. And during this time, they're growing up on a farm. They're farmers, of course, and it's very difficult to grow any crops just because of the state of the world and, of course, how things are going. Hence, why they needed to go on this grand expedition out into space. Um, but in these scenes, you kind of get to see how the dad interacts with the kids and the grandpa, and how those connections have formed. You see a scene where Cooper has to go in for a parent-teacher conference, and you see how he interacts. You kind of see his parenting style. So you start to develop a feel for the family and how things in the world are going in general.
That's amazing. Yeah. And so they're all starving, right? Like that's kind of like the thing. Like like food is decreasing. They can't grow it.
Yeah.
And then Murph, the Cooper's daughter, believes her room is haunted. That's kind of like the next step, right? She thinks
Yeah,
something's going on.
she calls it a ghost.
Ghost.
She feels like there's some sort of a ghost in her room that's showing her signs or telling her things, but she can't exactly pinpoint it. Um, and this is something that she brings up to her dad, and her dad sort of pushes it away um, in the beginning, but she calls it a ghost. Yes.
And then it's some sort of like binary code, right? That's left in the dust.
Yeah, so she finds out, this is kind of going further into the plot, whenever she's trying to get him to stay instead of going out on this mission, um, she finds in Morse code that the dust, which was later found that it's because of the gravity and things like that, this and that, it gives a code that says stay. And she says, "Look, Dad, it says stay. This ghost, this whatever it is, it says stay. It's a sign. You need to stay." And later in the movie, he says when it comes back to that, he kind of feels, that sign he should have listened. So it's kind of a powerful moment at the end. But yes, um, because of just her sitting in her room and her science brain, and even at a young age, she was still trying to figure this whole deal out. She found this code that said "stay."
Now, at what point does he drive through the cornfield?
So this is fairly early in the movie.
Okay.
It's him, and his son and his daughter. They go driving, and they get a flat tire, and it's kind of this cool scene because they're all kind of bickering at each other because Murph was the one that's supposed to be putting it into gear, and he yells. They say, "Oh, Murph, what'd you do?" But it was really just they got a flat tire.
Mm-hmm.
And then while all this bickering is kind of going on, this, you can call it a plane or whatever it is, it starts flying over them, and everything about the bickering and what was going on before, they forget about it. They jump and they're going straight through the cornfield, which is an absolutely beautiful scene, I'd say, because not every day you see a truck going straight through a cornfield.
And fun fact, they
And
grew all that corn for the production and then sold it afterwards and made a profit.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if they didn't make enough money from the movie, yeah, there you go. Um, but yeah, so this is kind of the first part of the movie where it's really intense because they're driving through and you don't know what's going to happen. And they're trying to track this thing because whatever technology they're using, they're trying to get the data from it to whoever was controlling it before. They're trying to tap into the data so then they can get control of it, and they're just driving and driving. They're trying to go, and then they start going towards a lake. And Cooper's not even really paying attention to where he's driving. He's just looking at this device in the air, and they're trying to grab the data. And out of nowhere, they're like, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" And because they're about to just go straight into this lake, and they stop, and they're like, "Oh no!" Like there it goes flying away. Like we lost it. And then he's like, "Hold on, just wait." And that ended up getting close enough to get the data, which is, was obviously what they wanted. And then they're able to then be controlling of it. And then it ends up coming back around because they're able to get it back. And they actually end up taking out whatever the, kind of the brain of whatever this engine plane thing was. And they ended up putting it into a tractor so that it could work on the farm, as essentially like an AI.
Nice. Cool. And then
Yeah.
so it goes from that to there's like a dust storm at the baseball game, right?
Yeah, so like I talked about earlier, they had the parent teacher conference
Is
that they
that
had to go
before or
to.
after?
This is before the baseball game.
Okay.
So they go to the parent teacher conference, and essentially Murph had brought in a textbook from home about space and exploration, and had fought with some of her classmates because her dad was a part of this, and of course had taught her all of this. And these kids told her that she was dumb and that
Mm.
it was just, I think it was something, they said that, oh, the new textbooks say something different, and we never went to the moon. which made Murph mad, and she ended up getting in a fist fight. And this conference, they also talked about um, his son. They told him that he needed to be a farmer and couldn't go to college. And he, as a dad, you could kind of see how his parenting, strategy wasn't, in line with the school organization. And the school organization was like, "All right, what are you going to do to punish Murph for getting in this fight?" And he said, "I think there's a baseball game tomorrow, and there's going to be candy and popcorn, and I think her punishment is I'm going to take her to that because she's really been liking baseball lately," and then rushed out. So, as you can see, that's kind of his parenting strategy. He didn't love the public school system, um, and rightfully so, because they had kind of started teaching these kids the wrong things because he obviously lived the things that they said weren't true. So there's obviously that clashing there.
Yeah.
And then, yes, the next day at the baseball game is whenever the dust storm happened.
Dust storm happens. And then we go from, this intense dust storm trying to like not die from the dust storm. And then we go to does he discover, remind me, because it's been a minute since I've seen this movie. Does he stumble across the science lab, or do they come to him?
So what happened was this dust storm happens. Windows were open. Something with the gravity in this magical bedroom that Murph has. They find another sign. This was before she had actually found the stay sign that we talked about earlier. They found this system with the sand, and it gave coordinates.
Okay.
So he had decided that at night after they had found it, that they were going to go to those coordinates. And Murph really wanted to go because she felt like she was a part of this exploration, but he told him no, it's too dangerous. So he had drove off, and whenever they were going down the driveway, she actually popped out from under a blanket, and she was already in the car, and she said, "I really want to go. I really want to go." And he was like, "All right." And then they finally get to the coordinates, and it's late at night, and they're at this barbed wire fence. And he says, they're thinking about how they're going to get through, and as they, go to start doing something, these, soldiers or guards come up and they say, "What are you doing? Turn your lights off." And Cooper's like, "We don't have guns. We're not trying to fight. We're just, we just showed up. We found these coordinates." And they're like, "How did you find it?" And then it kind of, blacks out from there. And the next scene is whenever, he woke up and he's inside of, the entire space station. Because that's how they had found, the space station and found Dr. Brand.
And it's not a space station in
end.
space. For those who don't know, it's a space station in the ground.
Yeah,
like
where they were going to launch,
And so at this part of the movie, he's talking to the doctor, and the doctor gives him the rundown of like, "Hey, the Earth has so many years left before they starve. Everyone starves to death." And we go from there, and they're like, "It's up to you. We need you to join our team." Classic. Every movie does it. And he's got to decide what to do. And that's where we get into, he's like, "I'm going to go." And he goes to leave. And she's like, "It says stay. And he drives off. And heartbreaking moment. So much emotion there. He has to leave his daughter. But he's like, "No, I'm coming back. I'll be back in a couple of years," right? What's the actual time that he's supposed to be away? Do you remember?
I think it was just very, subjective to how the mission went. I think there was always a chance he never came back.
Okay.
And I think that if everything went absolutely perfect, they could have been back in a few years. But yeah, I think that this is the first, very dramatic, intense moment, emotional, where, you saw correlations to maybe even who you were as a parent, or, thinking about your parents. I think something that makes me love this movie so much is because you can kind of look at your own situation in life, and when has there been a time where you had to go do something on your own. Your parents had to go off and have a sacrifice, and at the time you thought why are they doing that? I wish they would do this, but in the end, they were really trying to do it for the better of you or themselves or the family. But I think something that comes in with this movie is that, did they really do it for the kids or did they do it for themselves? And I think different characters, there's different answers to that question. Um, and I think that's a point that I really philosophically interests me about this movie.
That I like that. Yeah, that's good. So we go from there. They launch to space. Now, is the plan all along to go into the black hole or the wormhole, or is that kind of like they
So
adapt the plan? They're in space and like, oh no, there's a black hole.
so Dr. Mann, who was one of these pioneers that went out, they sent a bunch of different people out to different um, planets or solar systems that they thought might be able to sustain life. And Dr. Mann had said, "Hey, come here. My planet is habitable." And so there were some other people. So there was these different, planets and solar systems that they could go to, and their goal was to go. Once they got out there, they had to kind of see what they could do.
Okay.
Um, so they ended up going. They had some different options, um, and the first one that they ended up going to was this water planet.
And so wait,
And
hold on. For my memory, so they don't go through a black hole. These planets are in our solar system, right? Like that they sent word to. They're like, hey, like the
Yeah, because
doctor
I think
sent the guys. They go to the planets. There's a wormhole next to a planet, and that's later in the plot when they go through the wormhole.
hmm
Okay, okay.
yeah,
It's been so long. I wish I would have rewatched this one beforehand because there's so much to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There is. I mean, it's a 3 hour movie, and so yeah, the first place they get to is the water planet, and they get there and they land just in the water. It looks like they're just on a beach that's just. But I guess I should say that it looks like they land in the middle of the ocean, and just the entire planet is just an ocean. And so they get out and they're kind of checking things out. They're trying to look for the scientist that had went there to check it out, and they couldn't find them. And they were kind of going around. And I think one of the big things about this movie is time. In a lot of space movies and just movies in general, death is the scariest thing. But one of the things that I love about Interstellar is that it's different and they're really fighting time. Um, and this became extremely evident for the first time when they got on this planet because it was like 1 hour was 7 years on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was, as they were, checking things out, there was this absolutely massive wave. I mean, it was incredibly tall and it was coming towards them. And as they saw it developing, they were like, "We got to go. We have to go." And so they got in the ship. Um, but one of the crew members was kind of out further, and he had found something that he thought might be promising to their investigation. And so he was sort of, risking it by, trying to do what he was doing here, and then as hoping that he could get that and then bring it back to the ship. And everyone was yelling like, "You got to get back! You got to get back! You got to get back!" And they didn't leave in time. They had waited for him to get back because he didn't get into the ship in time, and the engines had waterboarded, and so they couldn't get up. And so they had to wait for this huge wave to come over them because they had to just sit in the ship. If they were outside, they would have been drowned. And so it took them way longer. And they ended up, once they got back, they had lost 23 years
Yeah.
on Earth. So that was, a tough time because it was one of the first times where Cooper really showed how much he cared about his kids. He was extremely angry. You know, you don't understand, how much time I lost with my kids. Are we ever gonna get back before my kids are even alive? And then Dr. Brand is kind of just telling him like, this is not about us. And this is one of the first times where that really clashed, where she was more worried about the future of the Earth, and this is why they were on this expedition. But Cooper really still was thinking about his kids, and even though yes, he did go and took that leap of faith, which was courageous, he was still really stuck in his mind about getting back to his family, rightfully so.
Yeah. And I mean, two intense back-to-back moments there. Well, I guess three. So them actually escaping. That's also the part where like it's spinning right out of control when they're docking.
No, I think
That's
that's
later.
later that's later in it.
Okay, but this is the part where he gets the voice messages from his daughter, right? And he sees her grow up in the
Yes.
matter of like 5 minutes of all the messages she sent,
Yes.
and
So
heartbreaking.
yeah. Oh yeah. The
And
next
then
place
not
that
to
they
me,
went was to where Dr. Mann was. And so in between them going from the water planet to where Dr. Mann was, which was like kind of the ice age type island, they had to decide whether or not to go to Dr. Edmund's island or Dr. Mann's island. And this is where they were kind of talking about it, weighing the pros and cons. And Dr. Brand had really been pushing to go to Dr. Edmund's island. Um, and they were kind of talking about it, and they were like, "Oh, I think we should go to Dr. Mann, Dr. Mann." And they had found out that she actually was in love with the guy that was at this certain planet. And for the first time, this entire time, she had been so hard on, we're just going to be doing the right thing for the earth, and we just have to do, the right thing. But then they had found out that she was really just saying it because she wanted to go see the person she loved. So it showed how, no matter how much these people said, it's more about everyone else. In the end, whenever you're facing, your life, you know, these people had a really hard time of truly forgetting about those that they loved. And then, yes, on this trip, while they were deciding, is whenever Cooper went and started watching those films, and really the most probably emotional part of the movie, for sure.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great debate. It's so fun. It's hypocritical, and it gives some actual drama because you're in the middle of space. What's the drama? And then like with the villain of the movie pretty much being time, and then
Hmm.
you have like these side characters. So they end up going to Matt Damon's planet, right? That's the ice planet.
Yes,
Is that
yes.
Doctor Mann?
So yes. Um, and so Cooper has that extremely, that moment where his son had essentially been sending him these voice messages his entire life, and he ended up getting married, and having a kid, and then eventually had said, since they had lost 23 years on that planet, had he hadn't heard from him in 23 years, and he essentially said, my wife told me to stop sending these because I was wasting my time, and I was going crazy back here on earth whenever I should just realize that you're essentially gone. And then he gets the video from Murph and her telling him, you told me you would be back, and now we're the same age. You're my father, but we're the same age, and that all this time has passed, and you've been out of your life. And she's pretty disappointed, and that's an emotional moment.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then this is whenever they land on this ice age planet, and when they enter their habitat there where they've been, they're hibernating in these pods, and they get there and it seems promising, and they get him out, and uh, Dr. Mann is there, and this is kind of whenever a whole bottle of worms opens because now they're hopeful and they found that Dr. Mann is alive, um, and this kind of enters a whole new segment of the movie.
And at this point, they're still looking for like, okay, a place that Earth can move to and habitate. And Dr. Mann said, "Hey, this place is mine." And as this progresses, they start to meet Dr. Mann. Things are fishy. It turns out that this isn't a habitable planet, and Dr. Mann was just scared and wanted to be saved. And you're just sitting there like,
Hmm.
"You son of a gun, you evil son of a gun." And then he jumps Matthew McConaughey, and we think Matthew McConaughey is
Yeah.
going to get left behind, and that's an intense fight. And it's such a good fight because it's not like it's just some super choreographed action fight scene. You feel like the desperation of like trying to get up the side of the mountain and like survive. It's just raw. They're in
Yeah.
clunky spacesuits. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, we haven't even mentioned the robot yet. That robot's hilarious.
Yes. Yes. I think one of the similarities, as of many, between the two movies is you have Rocky, who's this you know unnatural, it's not a human character, and then you have Tars, who I guess is more realistic now than Rocky is because now we have these robots walking New York City. But yes, Tars is essentially a robot that can do anything, and it's their assistant, and he's been along with them with this whole ride, and I think that it's a good touch for sure. And there's the scenes where it'll tell a joke, and he's like, "What's your humor rating?" And he's like, 100%. And he's like, "How about we put that down to 75?" You get some humor moments there, just because those are just some funny things that you would never think about. Whenever if you're talking to a human and they say a stupid joke, you can't just say, "How about we put your humor percentage down to 75?" So you have moments like that, but as well as you have moments like we did here, where Tars is kind of saving, trying to save Romilly, whenever the home base was blown up, and things like that, where you kind of see human similarities. But yeah, Tars is an awesome character.
Yeah, great character. So, progressing, like we're getting closer to the end of the movie at this point, right?
Hmm.
So, how does Matthew McConaughey beat Matt Damon and what happens next?
Yeah, so Matt Damon is really trying to get in his head by saying things like, what's the last thing you see before you die? And
Up,
it's
hold on.
usually your kids.
Sorry, guys. My AirPod disconnected. I don't know if it's just dying
Yeah.
or what. Yeah. This one's going to disconnect too. All right, continue.
Yeah, so in this scene, Matt Damon and Matthew McConaughey, get into a fight, and Matt Damon is saying things like, "What's the last thing you see before you die?" It's usually your kids, and kind of trying to foreshadow that, he's going to kill them, and that, remember your kids now. And Matthew McConaughey goes back and calls him a coward because he had them come all the way out here whenever it was really to just save him. And Dr. Mann was supposed to be this great, brave explorer, but he was really just ended up being a coward. That whenever his life came down to the last part, he wasted others, and he essentially wanted to take the others down. He understood that they weren't going to just let him take them back home. He wanted to kill them and then just take the ship back, and that's what he tried to do. He He ended up they getting into this fight where they were on top of each other, and he was headbutting the helmet of Cooper, and Cooper's helmet cracks, and air starts to come in, or I should say, whatever the atmosphere was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't air. If it was air, he'd be fine. And he starts to struggle, and so McConaughey then is just sitting there on the ground, and Dr. Mann goes back and gets into the ship. And while he's going off, McConaughey calls Dr. Brand and says, "Get our ship ready. We have to leave. Come pick us up. We have to get out of here." And so while they're both going their separate ways, they end up getting into their respective ships, and then they're flying away. So both of them, they fought. They ended up getting in their own respective ships and were trying to fly away. And then this is whenever we kind of get into the scene where they're trying to dock it into the space station.
Yes.
And so what Damon was trying to do essentially was, kill Cooper so that he could go and get it and then get to the space station first so that he could connect to the space station and then go back. So this is kind of like, a crazy fight between, the two. And so then what happens is essentially Matt Damon tries to, get on, but his own ship wasn't programmed to get onto that specific space station. And before their eyes, they watch, him and his entire ship blow up into smithereens. And that's, kind of a sad, but also sort of a good moment because, they didn't want him to steal the space station, but they also just watched him die. And so it's just a tough, it's a tough, scene to watch because you just watch someone die. But then they were able to essentially get rid of him since he was, trying to take them down, and they could go back on their exploration.
And we go from, doesn't his ship, when it explodes, it makes the space station spin out of control?
Yes. So this is what makes this scene extremely intense is, the space station is going insanely fast. And so to be able to connect, they needed to be going at the same exact speed. So this was very dangerous because they could program their own ship to go that fast, but if they mess something up and they collided, kind of like two ceiling fans going at each other, if they ended up messing up and hitting the wrong way, those two ceiling fans are going to go bang, bang, bang. And so you obviously don't want that to happen. But thankfully, they are able to connect.
Yes.
And
What an intense moment.
Yes. And I will add during this scene, which is there might be two climaxes to this movie or three, but this is definitely one of them, if not the biggest. While this is going on, it's cutting back and forth with this other scene where Murph, grown up Murph, and her brother were at the house, and she had like set fire on the entire cornfield. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. I vaguely remember this.
So what she wanted to do was she wanted to, go back into that bedroom and try to find the code because she thought that there might be another code.
Mm-hmm.
So she tries to distract him by setting the entire, cornfield on fire. And
The
so
food's already like they're running out of food, and Homegirl's like,
Yeah.
"Let me burn down the crops."
Yeah. So essentially what she does is, so then this is kind of like at this point in the movie from now until the end where they kind of meet, there's these two stories going on at once. So there's the climax of, them getting back in the space station while they're fighting Dr. Mann, and then also, Murph is back. Dr. Brand, as in, there's two Dr. Brands. The daughter is the one that's a crew member. The older guy is the one that's, the real scientist. He's dying. He's telling her, you know, plan A was never really going to happen. Plan B was, what was always going to happen, which I think we should talk about towards the end, the whole debate between plan A and plan B and how he essentially, had all these people going out to do plan A because that's how he was going to get them to go out and do this is to help humanity, but he was really just seeing into the future. He thought that plan A and the people on the earth were essentially already dead, which I'm sort of going off on a different tangent from where we were. So where we're at is now they've successfully, after spinning at 67 something, I think was what it was, in the air to go into the space station, they connect, they're relieved. And then there's also this other story starting to build with Murph and her brother back at home.
Okay. Yeah, so the doctor was like low-key a little evil because he's like, okay, plan A is definitely going to work. Really, plan B was plan A, and they just had plan A
Yes.
for a marketing technique to not scare everyone.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah, I
connect.
think that
They dock at the
Yeah.
station, and the one gentleman, he's old, right? He's older. Maybe that was earlier in the movie. Romley. Maybe that was earlier in the movie.
So Romilly ended up whenever they were fighting on Dr. Man's island. Ended up because of what Dr. Man tried to do to get away. The station had gotten blown up,
Oh.
and Romilly was inside. So at this point in the movie, now where we're at, it's only Dr. Brand and Cooper and
Yes.
Tars in the plane,
And
in
so
the
they're
space station.
and now what happens? Because this is where they go into the black hole, right?
Yeah, so this is where they start to, decide what they're going to do. They have a few options, whether it's to go back home, to go through the black hole, to do this or that. And essentially, what happens is, without Dr. Brand knowing, Cooper decides that he's going to disconnect, go off on his own. And because he wants to go back home, and she had been like, okay, let's go back home. But he knew that she really wanted to continue exploring. So he decided, without her really knowing, that he was going to disconnect and go back home and let her, he was like, you know what, we have to separate. And she was sort of happy because she was able to, go explore through the black hole. And so this is the point where he is on his own and he starts going. It's this high intensity moment, and then this is where it leads to the fifth dimension. And of course, probably the best scene of the movie is when he's in this fifth dimension, and he starts to be able to connect with Murph.
Yeah, so he goes into the fifth dimension, and it looks like it's bookshelves everywhere. It's trippy visuals.
Yeah.
And that's where he gets to her bookshelf, and it's revealed that he was the one leaving the code and trying to communicate through the fifth dimension to her. He's trying to get him to stop, and it's this emotional moment where he's like banging, like, don't go, as he walks himself leave and get into the exact mess he's already in.
Yeah. So, like we said, Murph had set the cornfield on fire to, distract him because she felt like she needed to go back up to the bedroom and see what was going on. And this is where they were able to connect. And so, everyone's out there, freaking out because there's a dust storm and, everything's on fire. And she's up there actually connecting with her dad, and her dad is in there, and it's this weird thing that's really hard to even understand, where he's at and how this all works. But you get some pretty cool quotes and moments that you've probably seen in Instagrams and TikToks where it's, no, Murph, don't let me leave, Murph, don't let me leave. And he can see through this bookshelf that moment where she told him, "Stay. Dad, it says stay." And he says, "No, I have to go on this exploration." And he's sitting there in this fifth dimension looking through the holes in the bookshelf, you know, wishing that he would have stayed. And through this, he's able to, still communicate with her in the present day. And this, equation that the older Dr. Brand was trying to figure out this entire time of his life on how they could save the planet and go through with plan A, they needed specific data they were actually able to find on their exploration. And through the Morse code, the same Morse code that she was able to find the message stay, he was able to understand that he could work on this watch that he had given her in her childhood, that he could give Morse code, program it through this fifth dimension, and give her the data that she needed to figure out the equation to plan A and essentially save the world.
Phenomenal. It's
Yes.
great. So
Yes,
he
and
saves it.
Yeah.
He saves the world through Morse code. And then how does he get out of there? I don't remember how the heck he gets out. Does he get dragged out by like the special people?
Yeah, so there's a lot about that scene that even I don't really understand. But he's talking to Tars in there. It's like they're on this like headset almost. It seems like, but you don't see Tars anymore. But he's still able to communicate with him, and he's saying things like, you know, they were never, they never put me here to change the past. They put me here to change the future. And he says, no, they never put us here in the first place. We brought ourselves. And you get some pretty interesting quotes that I've looked up, and it's cool to really see how all this works intertwines together. But yes, essentially the movie doesn't really show a lot about how it works, but he essentially wakes up in this hospital bed, and there's this baseball game going on outside his window, and someone hits a home run and the ball goes up in the air and it pans, and it looks like the world is like, it looks like you look up and there's a street that's on the ceiling, and then you keep looking, like it's like a weird, you're still in this like fifth dimensional weird looking world. And so it shows that they had sort of found this new world to live in, to where everyone could still live. And he asks, they're like, welcome to blah 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 Cooper, like they call this new world Cooper. And he was like, oh, that was nice that they named it after me. And they're like, no, actually we named it after your daughter because their last name is Cooper. And she's just this, she's the savior of the world because she had found the equation. He's so happy for her. And he asks about her, and they're like, yeah, she's actually been in a coma. And she's, not doing well. She's in a hospital bed. And so you get this powerful moment at the end of the movie where he actually goes to get to see her in the hospital bed. And she's this old woman at the end of her life, and he still looks 35. And you get this moment going back to, how can you relate this to your own life? And how do you see these same things in humans? And it's like Cooper did all of this trying to help his kids. And in the end, like so many other lives, the kid is the one that ends up helping the parent. But it's so weird because he says, no parent should ever see their kid die. And it's just this weird, weird thing because, he's 35 and his daughter is 95.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just shows how, in space, the time, even for me, I don't really understand it, but it just goes back to the whole part of, how you're racing time. And it's just crazy how it all works that, he's 35 and his daughter is 95 on her deathbed. Yeah.
Then it ends. Then the movie's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great movie. Uh, Dude, goodness, it always hurts my head when I watch it. Like I always am like, this was great, but I need to like go on vacation for a week because my head genuinely hurts when you start to like actually think about all the time stuff that's happening. Like at the
Mhm.
beginning of the movie, it's not hard, but then by the end of it, you're like, what? What?
Yeah. Yeah, you get 3 hours of just wrapping your brain, and I've seen it a few times, and every time, when you watch a movie a different time, you see something different, and definitely with this one, you do. Um, and I think just there's so many intense scenes where you're on the edge of your seat. And I think whenever I think of some of my other favorite movies, I think of Whiplash, Prisoners, Goodwill
Mhm.
Hunting, shows like Prison Break and Breaking Bad. You have so many moments in those two where you're on the edge of your seat. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's why I enjoyed this movie so much, because even with Hans Zimmer's music, it makes it even more intense. Cornfield Chase, I absolutely love that, and now whenever I watch the movie, just listening to that outside of the movie, it's like, oh, this is awesome, because that piece of music is great, and one of the final things I want to say about this is there's a poem throughout this entire movie that keeps coming back and coming back and coming back, and you hear it, but you never really understand it in the moment. And so I looked it up. The poem goes, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at the close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." And Dr. Brand says this multiple times throughout the movie. And at the beginning, he's saying this to encourage them to save humanity. The quote's essentially saying, don't let everyone die easily. You have to keep pushing and keep working and do everything you can. But the irony is that while he's saying this encouragingly, it's actually a lie, and he knows it's a lie. But he's encouraging them, and he's able to get them, hyped up to go save the world. But in reality, to him, this quote really meant forget about everyone that's on Earth and just keep pushing forward because you can't let humanity in its entirety die out. You have to colonize and you have to keep improving. So this quote can be spun different ways, but it's very powerful and it's a big thing in this movie.
It's it's true, yeah. And I mean, man, it's just a good movie. There's so many points you can touch on. But that I forgot, I
And
completely forgot about that poem.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So hey, tell the audience, how do you like when you're watching a movie, what are you looking at? Like what do you like? Cuz you said to me earlier like you didn't grow up like you weren't making short films on the weekend. Like you're not like a movie guy, but yet you're giving such beautiful you know, why you like the story and things about it. So tell the audience a little bit more about how you watch a movie.
yeah. So in comparison to Joe and Asa, who are on our team, who are more of on the production side, who have loved doing this type of creation of movie short films and videos, they understand more of the science behind the movie. Whereas I love movies. I'm more of even a TV show guy myself, but regardless, it's all cinema in itself. And whenever I named some of my favorite movies earlier. You can tell me if those are bad or not. You can tell me if it's dumb to say that um, I don't like superhero movies. So maybe my entire opinion is just not justified. But yes, what I look for in movies is just those intense moments, those moments that make me rethink things, make me think, make me, I want to watch a movie and sit there and say, who killed this person, or who's the villain, or how's this going to work out. I like those type of movies. I'm not a huge comedy guy. I'm not a huge superhero guy, and that's why I like Interstellar so much, is because there's so much to think, and it's a whole puzzle to put together, and you really have to be invested to see the whole picture of the movie.
Yeah. And that's why, I mean, it makes complete sense that you would choose Interstellar over Project Hail Mary, because they both have very similar plots. I mean, Interstellar's like, hey, it's the end of humanity, we're running out of food. And then you have Project Hail Mary, where it's like there's bacteria that's killing everybody and stuff. They both have to go to space to find the solution. They both,
Right.
find the solution. Both movies end with them on a different planet. But the themes are different. And Project Hail
Hmm.
Mary doesn't really have you asking those questions of who's the villain and all those thinking questions. Project Hail Mary is almost more about a feeling of one singular person and taking them on that character arc, one giant character arc uh, through space. Whereas this is, you're exploring themes, you're exploring the how would society react to this. You're exploring the uh, is it okay to lie to try to save the world, or should you not do that? And you're balancing these things, and then humanity of like, no, we need to stay focused. We need to stay focused. We shouldn't. Don't worry about your kid. And then she's secretly in love and trying to play the game, and all of these things they're wrestling through. Where Project Hail Mary throws Ryan Gosling's character right into the mix. He's the only one that can go, and we find out through the movie that like he actually got knocked out and sent on the spaceship. He has no choice but to do it, and he didn't want to do it at all. And
Yeah.
yeah, let's get into Project Hail Mary. Or do you want to rank? Do you want to rank Interstellar first on our three points?
Let's do both at the end.
Both at the end. Okay. So Project Hail Mary, and guys, you'll have to track with me because I don't remember the exact moments that we do flashbacks, but I'm going to tell the story the best of my ability. So what happens is, I mean, Ryan Gosling's a school teacher. He did space stuff at one point in his life. Very cool. And what happens next is he's teaching the class, and there's stuff on the news, and these kids are asking these hard questions. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to talk about it. Well, the scientist lady shows up, and she's like in charge of all the space stuff. And she's like, and we need your help because of this paper you wrote, and you think it can be done this way. And it turns out Ryan Gosling's whole life, he like believed this one thing, and he wrote a paper on it, and then it was proved wrong. And so he was a real fool in the science community. But they want him to try to figure out what's going on with this. It's not brain eating amoeba, but that's what I want to call it. It's just like some small cell organism that feeds off light. So he gets to meet up with this. He gets a bodyguard friend, and gets like a ton of duct tape from the Home Depot and the cardboard, and they build this room, and they start conducting science, and they find the cure. And what happens next is he has to go to the air carrier, and he's talking to all these scientists around the world, and he's like, okay, this is how you beat it. And they're like, we need you to go to space. And he can't go to space. He's like, I can't go to space. I'm not going to space. And he's wearing, like his cardigan the whole movie. He's like all nerdy. He's got his glasses and his cardigan, and everyone's like, ready to roll. They're like hyped up. And it's very interesting because when I watch a movie, I love a hero that's like, let's go stinking win. Like, let's go fight. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I want to just like, we might die, but we're going to fight. And at first, it's kind of hard for me to get behind that character of Ryan Gosling, but it was fun to watch him kind of grow because the story starts off this way, like that's the backstory, but the actual opening shot is him on the space station. He wakes up, he doesn't know who he is or where he's at, and he's fumbling around, and he finds out all his crewmates are dead. And so he's through this moment, he's reliving the things I just told you to give context. And so knowing that aspect, uh, it kind of gives you a better picture of where the movie's going. Now, when I watched Project Hail Mary, I hadn't seen a single trailer, so I had no idea what the heck was supposed to happen. I knew there was a rock creature on it in the movie from like the poster, but I knew nothing. And it's kind of similar to Interstellar in the sense of like they start to do some time stuff, but not in that way. Like it's all flashback storytelling. It's not thinking about time and how time is affecting. So that's where the movie starts. Do you have anything to add to that, Peyton? Just kind of like that
Yeah, I
first
think
act.
I think one of the big things that you wrestle with is that he seems like this incredibly smart guy that knows so much and can help, and that's why he was sought out to hopefully help them. But it's kind of like you're sitting there like, come on, dude, like let's go, like
Yeah, he's got no
let's do
courage.
this. Like you're yeah, and I think one of the big things is that in Interstellar, it's the family aspect is so important. But to be honest, he's just this single dude that doesn't really have a family and he has nothing going on, and that's what they kind of they abuse him in that sense because they say, dude, you got nothing going on, let's just do this thing, but he's still kind of like, no, I don't want to do it, I want to do it. So it's just a different a different vibe when it comes to the reason why he's going on this exploration is more of just they're making him and then he has to just make do with what he's got.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to go a little bit quicker through the rest of the movie. Uh, they find out that one specific star in the entire universe is not affected by this brain-eating amoeba, and
Mm-hmm.
they're like this. He's like, so what's the plan? He's like, they're like the plan's to go there to this one planet and this one star and figure out why the heck they're not getting destroyed, and we're gonna figure it out. He's like, that's the plan. He's like, that's a Hail Mary or whatever. It's kind of like that, like, oh, he said the thing moment.
Yeah.
And so they're like, yep, that's it. And so in the present day, he's starting to piece together all these things that we just went over. He's starting to remember it. Well, he runs into an alien spaceship and he's like, oh my gosh, what's happening? And there's some humorous stuff. They're like, the aliens like launching things at him. They're trying to communicate from spaceship to spaceship. Well, what happens is they end up kind of like connecting the ships together and he meets Rocky and you get to go through like this fun, cute scene of them trying to communicate and whatnot. Rocky's a space spider that looks like a rock. Super smart, but you think he's just like kind of like a cute little like dumb animal, but turns out he's like crazy smart, and you just think that because you can't understand the language. So they end up collaborating and experimenting on the astrophage, which is the brain-eating amoeba, to find a way to kill or repel it. And they get a bunch of setbacks, the equipment fails, and there's an environmental hazard, all the stuff you don't want to happen in space. And then they discover a breakthrough on how to, destroy it. And then let me think here. I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything. So what happens next is like Rocky builds like a little bubble and he gets to go experiment with Ryan Gosling's character Grace and like it's rolling around and it's a lot of humor. It's kind of a feel-good movie compared to Interstellar. Interstellar is more dramatic and a thinker, where this is like you're kind of sad. It's almost like you could watch this movie and like I don't know how I want to say this. Project Hail Mary, I think, helps people cope with COVID. If there's anyone who's still struggled with
Mm,
the effects of being alone in COVID, I think this movie helps them cope with that. Because you're alone
yeah.
in space, you find a friend, and in COVID, everyone was alone and they wanted a friend, and then they think everything's going wrong. And then they find out there's a cure, there's a way to get over it, essentially, in the movie. Uh, But what happens is when they're trying to collect this sample, right? Like they go to the star and are trying to collect the sample. Oh, now my memory's bugging out. Rocky and Grace separate at one point in the movie. I think they find the cure, but then while Grace is going
Oh,
away, he
yeah.
finds out it leaked and it didn't actually work all the way.
Yeah, Rocky sort of dies for a bit. Like he thinks that he died, but he's essentially just in a coma.
Yeah. Well, that's after the star. Oh,
Okay.
oh, oh. I skipped something. Hold up. they go to like the star planet and collect the special stuff to cure the brain-eating amoeba, to kill the brain-eating
Hmm.
amoeba. But the spaceship spins out of control, similar to Interstellar, but uh, not out of control in that sense, where the G-force locks Ryan Gosling up and The Rock up, and they're barely able to get the ship under control. But Rocky has to break out of his bubble into the toxic oxygen air starts to kill Rocky, just to press the button. Well, he's burning alive. Rocky is, while Grace, Ryan Gosling's character, is knocked the heck out. And so Rocky I think, builds a chamber like loosely, and he's in a coma. Ryan Gosling's trying to like save him, and he figures out the experiment. And you're sad. You think he's died, and then he hasn't died. Rocky's alive, and so they go their separate ways. They have the cure. Turns out that the cure worked, but the brain-eating amoeba broke out, and the brain-eating amoeba feed off Rocky's kind. So Rocky's whole family that he was traveling with on this big spaceship had died from the brain-eating amoeba.
Hmm.
And essentially the engine that the rock people have is like just fuel for this brain-eating amoeba stuff, essentially. The astrophage. And so Ryan Gosling goes back and saves Rocky, and you think the movie ends, and it doesn't end. Yada yada, and then you think it's going to end again, it doesn't end. You think Rocky's dead again, but they end up saving each other. They don't have enough fuel to go back to Earth, and they don't have enough fuel to go back to Rocky's planet, but they have the time capsule to send to Earth. So what they do is they send the cure to Earth, and Ryan Gosling hops a ride with Rocky. And we find out that they build a super habitat for Ryan Gosling, and he teaches Rocky's people about Earth science and becomes a teacher. And through the movie, and I kind of blew over it, Ryan Gosling builds up the courage to go out on the spacewalk, and he's like, leave humanity behind and do the right thing, and kind of overcome the problem of what Matt Damon's character had in Interstellar of like, no, uh, I need to be saved. I need to go back. He freaks out, but Ryan Gosling kind of like dies to himself, and it's like, no, greater good. But it takes the whole movie for him to learn that one lesson. Great soundtrack through the movie. You're feeling it, but I think it's more of a vibe movie.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. I
I
think
sped through that. Do you think that's a good recap?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think what I'll say is everyone told me to watch this movie because I liked Interstellar. So I came into the movie thinking it was going to be Interstellar, but it wasn't, and I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed it for different reasons. But I was expecting it to be Interstellar, so I was expecting certain moments to be more intense, there to be more to it. I think really one of the there was a whole lot less moments where it was really intense. Like there was a moment where Rocky was trying to send a message and he had to go out of the ship to retrieve it, and it was intense. It was like, is he just gonna fall out into the abyss? And that was a good moment. But yeah, definitely less intense and just more upbeat. I think Interstellar was very sad and a tearjerker,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot of moments that sucked. But we're here, in the midst of all of this pressure and trying to save the world. There was humor, there was teamwork, there was this cool bond between two completely different species. And in this movie, survival and having to survive brought out the best in them, and they were able to thrive and be happy and end up having this great world where in Interstellar, survival brought out the best in these people, and people tried to kill each other and lie, and in the end, yes, it was a good ending, but it was still sort of a sad ending. So this movie was definitely um, more happy, and you felt there was an upbeat song at the end, and it was like, yeah, we saved the world and everyone's happy, which is always a good feeling.
Yeah. And that's something I really thought about. Like people were comparing the two movies. They're like, "Oh, Interstellar's better." Project Hail Mary copied Interstellar, and I don't think. I think Project Hail Mary and Interstellar have similar like plot points, as in like a driving of like, okay, into the world. We have to go to space to find the solution to fix Earth back home. A lot of movies have that plot, if you think about it.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like comparing apples to oranges, though. I think they're both two great movies, but they're trying to do two completely different things.
Yeah. I think when you look at it, there's so many. It's almost like they had the same organization, but each folder was completely different. So there was it was each a file folder, but the different folders and files in each shelf were completely different. So it was the same framework, and from the outside you could say that it was the same thing, but all the different characters and the way things happened were completely different, and it really was a different story and a different
Yeah.
viewpoint through the same sort of space world saving. Overall, the actual inside was very different.
Yeah, I would agree. So let's answer this question first. Is Interstellar? No, let me restart. Is Project Hail Mary a knockoff of Interstellar? What do you think?
I think that you could make an argument to say yes, like I had just mentioned. It kind of seems like they're the same format, but the characters and the different things were just different. There was different planets, there was different problems. But I think overall they were similar enough to say that they were copying him. And I don't hate that because I think Interstellar is a great movie and I don't blame them for taking the same approach. So my final answer is yes. Project Hail
Really?
Mary. Project Hail Mary copied Interstellar, and
I
they didn't do
disagree.
it as well.
I disagree. I think Project Hail Mary versus Interstellar is like they're both I like the organization, or like they're both cake, but one is the best piece of cake you've ever had and one's a cupcake. Like, yeah, they're both cake. Like, they're both space movies. But
Yeah.
I think it's almost surface level. I think, like, what are they trying to do? Because I don't think Project Hail Mary is trying to do the same thing as Interstellar.
Yeah. They're not, but I think that the format of the movie and how things progressed and like the overall outcomes and the goals of the movie were just too similar for me to say that a movie that came out 12 years later wasn't copying one that came out so much earlier.
Yeah,
I just
I
think
mean,
that
it
whenever they
feels
were
more
planning the movie, they
inspired.
had to have been thinking about Interstellar. You can't. Are you going to sit here and tell me that they weren't sort of thinking about Interstellar when they made this movie?
No, I think they were. I think it's inspired. I think it's definitely an inspiration. I could also see elements of 2001's A Space Odyssey being brought into both Project Hail Mary and Interstellar to a degree. And I would say almost more of a Project Hail Mary, just with aesthetically. But I wouldn't say that it's a copy of 2001's A Space Odyssey. Because that's also an AI driven, or part of the movie's AI driven plot. And then
Mm-hmm.
bigger aliens. But I just think aesthetically, the looks gives Project Hail Mary's almost got like, it's like modern, space technology, but it's got like a retro vibe almost to it in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, interesting. So you think they're direct? It's a copy almost.
I think there's enough of the same that I would, if I had to pick one or the other, I would say yes. I would say it's probably 60-40. Yes, I'm saying they copied.
So you think Project Hail Mary copied 60% of Interstellar?
Yeah,
That's
over
crazy.
50%.
That's crazy. Okay,
All
so
right.
here's my argument. Here's my rebuttal against that.
Okay.
The hero's journey. Every movie has the same format to the most part. There's your hero doesn't want to go on a journey. They're forced to go on it. They don't know how to do it. They find a guide. They get equipped. They go finish the mission. They win, right? And that's pretty much, that applies to both Project Hail Mary and Interstellar. They just both
To an
so happen to
extent.
take place in space.
To an extent, I mean, them going on the expedition in Interstellar was more on them than it was in Project Hail Mary.
Yeah, I
Project Hail
mean,
Mary, he
in
was forced to.
Interstellar, the villain is time, and in Project Hail Mary, it's brain-eating amoeba that you can't see. So
Yeah,
it
but
is
in
similar. I'll
Interstellar,
give
it's
you that.
also
It's
saving the world.
the more I think about it, the more similar it is. But like the themes are very different. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you were to look up on Google, what are the values or stories I can learn from these movies, they would be different. But I just think, yes, every movie has the same, rising action and climax and conclusion and like yes, but I just think that the fact that they are space and trying to save the world, and they have this period of the movie where the beginning is on Earth, and then they have the moment where they're going off in space, and then there's the moment where they have these trials and tribulations, and then the end is they're back on the planet happy. I think fill in the blanks with that, there's enough for me to say that yes, it's definitely a knockoff of Interstellar.
now I will say this: Interstellar is not based on a book, and Project Hail Mary is based on a book. So let's see when the
Hmm.
book was written for Project Hail Mary, because maybe
Okay.
Interstellar copied Project Hail Mary's book.
Wow, that would be a plot twist.
Plot twist. Book release. Okay. Okay. It's loading. Project Hail Mary is a 2021 hard science fiction novel. Ooh, that's not
Not
looking
quite.
good. It's not
Not
looking
quite
good.
Project Hail Mary.
Oh. Okay, rewatchability is a big thing. Real quick before we rank both these movies, which one do you? I haven't rewatched Project Hail Mary. You haven't. I think Interstellar, you still feel the oh my gosh, what's going to happen every time. I feel like you could get that with Project Hail Mary, but I'm also like, and when I say what's going to happen, I mean the intense moments. Like when he's docking with the space station, is that scene still as tense for you as it was when you first watched it?
I mean, to a certain extent, yes. I think it is. You can definitely rewatch both of these. Um, Personally, like I've said, I loved Interstellar. I just watched Project Hail Mary once, obviously because it's so new. One thing I will say is that both of these movies are very long,
They're very
and
long.
I had recommended Project Hail Mary to someone, and they had said, "Dude, you think I'm going to sit down for 2.5, 3 hours to watch a movie?" Which is a bad take in itself, but that's kind of something that goes against both of these movies. Is that if you watch one of these movies, you're taking up like a quarter of your day to a certain extent.
Yeah,
So it's like you have to really be invested and want to go through, the story and do all that. So I think that both of these movies, I wouldn't call them easy rewatches, but I think they're rewatchable, and I think that you can enjoy them multiple times.
I agree. Let's rank these movies.
Let's do it.
Okay, what were our criteria? It was story overall, like story themes, all that.
Okay.
Then visual craft. So, and we'll include music. So music, cinematography, uh, visual effects, the whole shebang. Sets, costume design, and then lastly, how does it make you feel?
Okay.
And that one's kind of subjective or objective.
Yeah.
And we'll do 1 out of 10 for each one, and I'll keep a tally here on my phone. And
Okay.
we'll see which one ranks higher, and we'll see how close they rank.
Okay.
Okay. So you go first. Rank it on a story, 1 out of 10.
Story. Story, I'll say 8.
On
I
Interstellar?
think, yes.
Okay.
I think the story, just from a outside looking in, is how I'm trying to rate these movies. I think that it's a great story, but there's a lot that you have to think into. And I've looked up, what does this mean? What does that mean? I think that this story is good, but it's not, the best. It's not the best story. It's not the easiest to consume. So that's why I give it an 8.
Just because it's harder, you can't show it to everyone, in a sense.
Yes.
What movie would you rank above that on a story, like just off the top of your head, for comparison for
I
me and the
mean,
audience?
as a TV show guy, I think that there's just so much more you can do in a story. And I think that movies like Prison Break, or I should say a TV show like Prison Break, I think that that story and how it develops is just so great. And, it's easy to understand, but it's also you're trying to figure it out as you watch. I say that that's Prison Break is a 10 out of 10 story for me.
Tentative. Okay. I was going to give Interstellar probably like a 9 on story. Just because I
Yeah.
like some of the plot twists. And I think the more thinking you do, the better it can make a story.
Yeah.
Now, Tenet is a thinker, and I don't know about that one. I like, but it takes a lot. I don't think the story is as good with that. I'm gonna give Interstellar a 9.
Yeah.
9 for
I think
story.
I was gonna go 8 or 9, so I think that's it's a good
Okay.
rating.
And okay, story Interstellar. And then do we want to go? Let's just finish ranking Interstellar all the way. How's that
Okay.
sound? Or do you want to go back and forth?
Let's just do the whole thing.
Okay. Story. Okay. Craft. What do you give it?
I'm gonna go 10. I think that just the visuals, everything about the movie, I think that there's just not many movies that look as good as Interstellar. From the beginning, them in the cornfield, to them, trying to connect a space station, and it looks real and it looks like it's in space. I think it's extremely hard to beat it. So I'd say that for that category, Interstellar is a perfect movie.
I'm gonna go 10 as well, and it's because there's no part of the movie that takes me out of it. Like when I'm watching Interstellar visually, give it a 10. The special effects don't take me out of it. The music doesn't take me out of it. I'm fully immersed the entire time. The costumes are great. It's believable, and it's just sci-fi enough. Like the robot is a great example of like, okay, you have a steel robot waddling through the water, like executed flawlessly, perfection. And I mean, we all know uh, Christopher Nolan loves to do things practical to an extent, and that really shows. Okay, how it makes you feel overall. I think ours are going to differ here.
Yeah, I for this one, whereas you'd probably be surprised to hear me give an 8 to the first one of the story
I was.
after how much I glazed it. I'm gonna be very just me here, and I'm gonna give it a 9. I think for me, how it made me feel in the sense of, I like to be very philosophical. I like to think of, how can this movie um, reflect my life? How can I use this movie to be a better person, to work harder? Um, Things like that I like, and then also just how it makes me feel. I just like I said, having to figure things out, being on the edge of my seat. I enjoy that adrenaline, that dopamine of those scenes. So I think how it makes me feel, I'm gonna go with a 9. That's almost a 10.
Okay, a high 9. Okay, this one's hard for me because when I watch a movie, there's like two ways I like to leave the theater, kind of like feeling or leave a movie. Is do I feel inspired? Do I want to go make a movie after this? Uh,
Mm.
because I don't necessarily want to feel sad, but I want to feel like hopeful and like, man, that hit. And this movie hits, but there's some other movies that have hit harder, I think, with that sense. Um, I felt out of breath, not out of breath, but like I could like take a breath after the movie was over. I was like, goodness, like this was great, but like I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Maybe my brain's just weak. I don't really know. Could be. But I don't want to give it a 7. I'm leaning towards an 8 because it is really
Okay.
good. I'm trying to not like let my bias of like what I don't like to feel, because like I don't feel bad in any sense of where I'm like, oh, I hate what they did. It really irks me with the way they ended this.
Hmm.
I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah. I'll also say that the first two times I watched it, I definitely cried, and I don't know how I should feel about, do I want to cry when I'm watching a movie? Um, Maybe it just means it's a great movie. That also goes into the experience. Um, but I stay with my 9.
Okay, so out of our rankings, it gets a 54 out of 60
Okay.
because 10 out of 10s would be 60. Yeah. Okay. Project Hail Mary. Yeah, so we gave it the same score, just in different areas. That's very fascinating.
Yeah.
I'll start us off with this one, since this one would be, I kind of went into this leaning more towards this. As we kind of walked through each movie, I started to like Interstellar a little bit more. I think Project Hail Mary did a good job of executing the going back and forth, but I'm typically not a fan of it. And when I saw that they were doing that trope of like, he's got to remember and we're going back to the past, I didn't, I was like, oh, this is good. They executed it well. But when I think about rewatching it, it doesn't get me excited. Like, I
Mm.
think I enjoyed it because I didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, I enjoyed the humor and the lovability, but it typically doesn't get me going. Like, I would probably be more inclined to watch Interstellar over Project Hail Mary, just with the story and the beats. So I'm going to give Project Hail Mary, but it was still really good. I'm going to give it an 8.
Okay.
Overall, I gave Interstellar a 9. I think they're pretty close. I think it almost just depends on a mood I'm in. But I'm going to give it an 8.
Yeah. I think with what I said about how similar I feel these two movies are, I'm gonna give Project Hail Mary a 6 because I feel like both stories were great, but Project Hail Mary's story just didn't do it for me as much as Interstellar did.
Fair, fair. Craft. I'm going to give, I think I gave Interstellar a 10. I'm inclined to give, no, I'm going to give it a 9. And here's why I give the overall Craft 9. The music choices were fun. They did do some pop music, which kind of dates the film as it will continue to progress, because I think Harry Styles has a song
Mm.
in it, and it won't necessarily hit with other generations when you lean that much on it for a movie that it's trying to be. Rocky executed phenomenally. The Glass Ball executed phenomenally. They blended practical and visual effects really well. They did a lot of both. They didn't use green screen, but they did do CGI. Him on the ship with all the particles flying by was really cool. They had lasers they were shining all over his face that you was it? It's not UAV. Is it UAV or ultraviolet? There's a specific laser that you can't see on camera because there is a filter on the sensor. So what they did was they pulled that sensor off the cameras they were filming with, and that's how you get that cool red effect. And I thought that was really cool. So I think I give it a 9 out of 9. It just felt like the spaceships, when they were interacting with each other, felt a little odd. Like, yeah, it's a super spaceship, alien spaceship, but it just seemed like it was gliding back and forth and up and down. Whereas I would have liked to have seen some more like weight to it, because they didn't explain it. Like, there's no rules that have been set up in the universe to where that makes sense at that point in the movie. It kind of took me out of it when I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think going back to just how similar the movies can be at times, I think any space movie to make it look real, it has to be a top tier level of production. And so I'm going to go 9 here as well because we gave Interstellar a 10. I'm going to go 9 here because, it was great. And even with it coming out 12 years later, there's just going to be things with just the quality and things that they could do that that are even better than Interstellar because back in 2014 maybe they couldn't even do those things. So I think those things boosted it. But for me, there's just with the story and kind of how much better I think the story is than Project Hail Mary. I think that the visuals and different things that was in the movie, there was just more, and so that's why I put Interstellar at a 10 and Project Hail Mary at a 9.
Okay. And I will say, we didn't even talk about this, Project Hail Mary is one of the more original movies they've made all year outside of the Odyssey.
Mm.
And Odyssey is a remake. Well, it's not a remake. It's just a classic story, right? But like when you think of movies they haven't like made, though we are kind of discovering that Project Hail Mary is a little bit of a duplicate. It was a refreshing to a lot of people, and
Yeah.
it's almost like the people that don't like Interstellar and can't think love Project Hail Mary. Not to say they're dumb. It's you're just catering a different food to a different type of people. Like Interstellar is like a nice fancy restaurant with a steak, and Project Hail Mary is like Texas Roadhouse. Still
Yeah.
great, just totally different vibe. Both steak.
Yeah, if you like Project Hail Mary more than Interstellar, you just have a low IQ. No,
Oh
I'm
my
kidding.
gosh. It's true though. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. If you're offended, comment below. Comment below. Comment
Yeah.
below. Okay, feel. I'm gonna be honest. I liked when I left the theater. I wanted to make a space movie. Like I was really in like I want to make this, and I wonder if I watched Interstellar today, if I would feel more of that. When I was watching it, I was like encouraged, but like I wanted to make it, but like my brain hurt. This I was inspired to go make something. So I think I'm gonna give it a higher score. I'm not gonna give it a 10, but I'm gonna give it a 9 for my feel.
Hmm.
Because I did want to go make like a space movie. And Ryan Gosling's just inspiring. The way he makes you feel throughout the movie. By the end of the movie, you're just kind of like you're vibing. You're just chilling with Ryan Gosling, and he's just fun.
Yeah.
He's just a chill guy. What do you think for feel?
For me, I'm gonna go with a 5 here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wow.
I think with it being more of a humor, the being less intense, with just the fact that I was under the understanding that this was gonna be just a knockoff of Interstellar in the way that it was, intense and all these different moments. I kind of just when I finished watching the movie, I was kind of like, "Oh, it's over." Like I was waiting for something more to happen. I was waiting for more of an adrenaline rush, um, and it was a feel good ending. But there was, I mean, just to be completely honest, setting aside the other rankings about the actual substance of the production, I really just felt like there was more to be desired whenever I completed watching the movie, and it wasn't exactly my cup of tea. So that's why I give it a 5.
Well, that's understandable. I am more of a humor guy. I love funny stuff. And I enjoy that. But yeah, that just goes down to like that's where feeling really speaks the most because it's like if you don't feel it, I mean, if the craft is perfect, the story's perfect, but you don't feel it, like it's not good. What we should have asked was we should have added like a fourth. Maybe we'll do this for future movies. Like after we just do all that ranking, what was the director trying to convey, and do we feel that it hit those things? Because the director wants you to
Mm-hmm.
feel a specific way, and you don't feel that way. I mean, that's okay, but it means the director kind of failed at his job. Because sometimes people will watch a movie, like there will be people that will watch a movie, they will not feel or interpret it the way the director wanted to, and it's still a great movie. Like people love it, but he did not execute it the way he intended to. and you want to be able to
Mm.
move the audience in that light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so score here. Let's final reveal. I mean, you guys already know. Project Hail Mary, 46 out of 60. So that means Interstellar does win by 8 points. So Project Hail Mary is a 46, Interstellar is a 54 out of 60. And real quick, let's just see what the percentage is. What is the percentage of 60 to 54? Am I doing that right? Ask AI. 90%. So we gave Interstellar an A minus, essentially.
Okay.
Is 46 to 60. And then we gave Project Hail Mary 76%. So a C.
C.
A solid C. Passing grade, good movie. You're going to watch it. I mean, you take your family to see it. Like, your kids aren't old enough to watch Interstellar. You can throw on Project Hail Mary. They'll enjoy it. They'll probably I mean, that might be a better way to watch it. You watch Project Hail Mary, then Interstellar. How does that change the viewing experience? Are you like, oh my goodness, there's even more, it's better?
Mm-hmm.
Like, then you're just continue to be hyped, and then you have the liking of both, or is that tainted? I don't know. But yeah, we've been going for a hot minute now.
We have.
We did it. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I think that, that was, we definitely talked about Interstellar a lot.
We did.
More.
It kind of deserves it, though.
Yeah, I had so many notes about different parts that I wanted to talk about. And whereas, Project Hail Mary just came out, and I think it's more fresh on people's mind in general.
Well, I'll tell you this. As you were talking about the movie, it jogged my memory about so many things that I hadn't thought about, and just like visually. And I was just like, I was just like, dang it, that is a good movie. Like the whole time I was like, you were convincing me and you didn't even know it. Because I was going to go Hail Mary on this. But
hey,
if you enjoy, do what?
I said I convinced him.
You did. Well, I hope we get some good clips out of this. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Like, comment, subscribe. We should do backstory another time because I feel like we went a little over an hour 15, hour and a half record time here.
I hope you guys see me right now because hopefully my phone's not dead.
That would be a bummer. Yeah.
It's probably not, but yeah.
That'd be bad. Okay. Yeah. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment. What movies do you want us to talk about? Next week, we are going to be doing Spider-Man, Brand New Day. The goal is to film a podcast episode in the parking lot of AMC after we watch it on Thursday. That'll be exciting. I think Hannah will be our guest star that day. So that'll be good. And then, yeah, Peyton's a golfer, and he does business. So if you like golf, be sure to go follow Peyton on Instagram or LinkedIn or comment you like golf and talk to Peyton in the comments. But yeah, we did it.
Yeah, and if you disagree with everything I said in this, just let me know and we can debate it.
Comment if you're just livid, if you're just furious, just let Peyton know, and we're gonna
just give it to me. Give it to me.
Yeah, you hunt him down. No, don't do that. Well, okay, click over here for another video, and we talked about the Maze Runner. Asa thinks the Maze Runner is a perfect movie, so you can watch it. Actually, before let's do this for a clip. If you guys are still watching, you can watch for the next minute to see Peyton's take. Peyton, what is your comment to Asa saying The Maze Runner is a perfect movie?
I haven't watched it, but I can tell you that it's not perfect.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Peace.